thank you for being really brave and coming and telling your story, because we really need to get this Gardasil vaccine off the market. Yes. So appreciate you talking about it. Yeah. What age did you have the first Gardasil shot?
I got my first shot when I was 12.
And what made you go to have it?
I don't think it was purposely like we sought it out. I think it was more, recommended because, you're at that age and that, 12 you should.
When you were getting the DTaP and meningococcal vaccine the same day.
Yeah.
And then the doctor had been on us too.
So you went in
for the DTaP because, going into the school. 8th grade you needed to have the 7th grade you needed to have the DTaP shot. Yeah.
So
you ended up having DTaP,
meningococcal
and Gardasil.
And Gardasil.
What a cocktail of vicious vaccines.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
All right. So they just suggested that you had that then. You didn't think about it, or you?
They had been suggesting it before, and then that day, I don't know. It just, it was the worst mistake, right? That they're just like, I'm being a bad parent by not giving her this opportunity to not have cancer when she's older. So it was, if I only knew now what I didn't know then, but that was the beginning. And when it took us a good year and a half to even figure out that there was any relationship to the vaccines and what happened, because it was an immediate reaction
to the first vaccine.
Yeah, to the first dose.
Have you only had one dose?
2.
Right.
She had the second one made things.
Okay, let's talk about the first one first of all.
Well, the first one, I don't think I hadn't started having seizures then.
With the first
one,
I
did actually.
With the first one though, it was immediate reaction. We just didn't know it because all of a sudden Isabella started having very pale complexion, very fatigued, and just not herself. And so we were going on a big trip, and so I set up with and she was having overheating episodes. And so I made an appointment for the pediatrician a few months fast forward to look into maybe having anemia or something, because
out of
nowhere it just kind of came up. And so then we went on this big trip, and that's when she started having these very bizarre, strange episodes.
Can you describe what they were like?
Yeah, so there were 2 that trip. The first that one was more of a panic attack. I had, I don't know, I just came from a chapel, but I had a really huge anxiety attack, and I felt I was completely disoriented. I didn't know what was going on, and later that day I was having sort of almost hallucinations and delusions, and so that was the first sort of episode. But then I'd say about a week and a half later I had a seizure. It started out as sort of overheating, and then it turned into actual convulsions.
And it lasted, you're talking about the one in Greece?
Yeah.
It lasted 45 minutes. I mean, it was,
Which isn't normal.
That was you talk about, I can talk about it without crying right now because we've been through it a lot together, but I didn't know what was happening. 1 minute we're just in this train station, and the next minute she's on the ground, and I didn't know what to really do because I thought, oh my gosh, she's overheating, let's take care of her overheating. But then the convulsing started and everything else, and then suddenly she kind of was losing consciousness. And so I'm just trying to keep my brain, and I'm thinking, we're in a foreign country. Do I want her to go to the hospital? Yes, I want her to go to the hospital, but I'm afraid what's going to happen if we send her to the hospital. Anyway, long story short, we did call the paramedics, and the neurologist that saw her said, you need to go to your doctor as soon as you go back. That's a seizure. And then I was like, well, we already have appointments set up, and that was when we got back. She had an episode at school, within a few days we got back, and I was like, well, at least we have the appointment with the doctor that day. And this is where the biggest mistake of everything comes into play, because that day when we got to the doctor, she was just like patting us and saying, oh, it's just a panic attack. It's just, you just need to go see a psychologist. And she said, but you're here today, so you should get the second Gardasil shot. And
unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable, because now I know, like, her her body was in complete high alert, from this episode that and then so that was when everything just started to tumble from there. Isabella couldn't get out of bed. She was just chained to, she was like in a room all the time. She was having strange stomach.
Why were you, can you describe how you were feeling?
It's hard to remember now, because I think in some ways I've kind of blocked it all out, but I think I just didn't, I felt almost like numb. There wasn't anything there. There wasn't really any life, if that makes any sense.
It was like, if you only knew her when she was younger, like, we would be at SeaWorld and someone would pick her out to be the stage person, to come up on stage. She was that kind of person. And always the entertainer of the group. So many friends, so active that we're like, oh my gosh, can we do one more thing? And she was always driving it to, I don't want to see my friends. I can't go to school. I can't go to any of my activities. She was...
Was it because you just felt ill? What was going on?
I think I didn't really, know what was going on. I think I was, just sort of I didn't, I couldn't identify what I was feeling. I was, I just assumed that it just sort of happened. And I just, again, like, there were no, like, when I was not in my, like, normal self, I was not really I just wasn't thinking, I wasn't there. And if I was thinking, I was, having irrational thoughts. And, I started having a bunch of more psychological symptoms. And so it was either I was completely, I feel like, devoid of emotion and not, there, or I was, crazy.
By the way, we hear this a lot.
Yeah.
Too many times for it to, it's
I
not
know.
a coincidence. There's a lot of, and actually those girls and boys are then being given psychotropic drugs, which is making everything even worse.
Yeah,
so.
and that's what happened to me. They put me, even the smallest, dosage of
they tried like anti-seizure, even the anti-seizure medications, the smallest dosage would make her be like a drunk zombie. She just couldn't function. She couldn't go to school.
For the seizures,
Yeah, for the seizures.
And did they give you stuff for the anxiety?
Well,
yes.
After, before, and then, not at the same time, but even the smallest dosage
Of those.
it did not. It was just horrible. It made things worse, and that's where you see people going down, like, then a whole other, if you don't pull them off it, because then they start treating the other new symptoms that arise from the medications. But Isabella is a warrior princess. She was so she was having different symptoms on different days. It would be like one day she would be couldn't walk. One day it would be she, wouldn't want to eat. It was like someone had a voodoo doll. She had so many symptoms. Every day it was like a new day. It was like someone didn't want us to have, like, to get anything under control. We just couldn't, get a handle on any of it. And we just went to endocrinologists, we went to neurologists, we went to gastroenterologists, we went to the first, initially when we went to, because I'm like, okay, we should go to the psychologist, I guess, let's go check this out. And she was like, oh, she's having stomach migraines. And I'm like, perfect, yay, end of discussion. And then within a year, all of these strange psychological symptoms appeared, and you have this check-off list of what might be like bad thoughts, this or that you're checking off. She checked off every single one of those, and the doctor was like, do we need to put you into a hospital? And you know, it was scary. She was one day suicidal, one day depressed, the next day having seizures, and then other types of seizures that were more physical, that she would have paralysis, she would have facial paralysis, I would come to pick her up from school, she couldn't walk, you know, just light sensitive, you know, flash photography, drop to the ground, noise sensitive, food sensitive, everything sensitive.
Yeah.
You know, it was 4 years of constant battles.
Yeah.
You know, constant battles. And
how did you work out it was the Gardasil? So when you went for your second Gardasil, was that the only vaccine you had that day?
yes.
Yes, that
All
was.
right, so
Yes.
that means you're narrowing
Yes.
it down. Okay, got it.
I mean, it was kind of strange how I figured it out. One day I had asked for Isabella's records and so her vaccine report, and so one day, it was like 2-3 years ago, they had this thing with Katie Couric, and I happened to come across it on she had a television show about the HPV shot, and I happened to go online and look at the comments, and in between, you know, all the people that were making like one way or the other, there were all these comments of moms, and they sounded just like her story, and they were like very articulate. They weren't saying bad vaccine, good vaccine. They weren't saying anything. They were just saying, we had the vaccine and then this is what happened to my child. And so it was like all of a sudden, like it just hit me. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe not a single person put this together, that, you know, all these symptoms immediately started right after, and then especially after the second vaccine, it was that week again, stomach issues and all kinds of things. And actually her pediatrician called us and said, I saw that she's having a lot of testing done. Is everything okay? And I said, no, everything's not okay. And I'm just wondering something. When she took the Gardasil vaccine, did it ever occur to you that she might have a reaction? And she was like, well, some people are more sensitive than others. And I was like, but you never said that to us when we took the vaccine. You know, it was the opposite. And you know, now we are having to have a person, a young lady, not be able to enjoy her life. Her life before was so full, and you know, for 4 years it was devoid of
anything.
life. You know, just going to doctor's appointments, just, you know, in her room, not being able to be with friends, not being able to do her dancing, singing, all the things that she loved in her life.
Yeah.
And what about now, though? Can you do any of those things now?
Yeah. Now things are, you know, so much better. Things didn't start getting better until about a year ago, because that's when we sort of figured out that I had PANS, which is pediatric acute neuropsychiatric.
Can you speak up a tiny bit?
Sorry, pediatric acute neuropsychiatric syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's sort of when we sort of pinpointed what had happened. So, you know, there are a multitude of things that can trigger that, but one of them is a vaccine injury. So then once we sort of, you know, figured out that I had that, and there were also tests that showed, you know, inflammation in the brain and different antibodies, we sort of, you know, we had something to go off of, and so we tried antibiotics, which is the most common thing, but unfortunately that didn't work. So we just started healing alternatively, and so we started by just sort of healing the gut, healing autoimmune, so diet changes and everything, and then you know, acupuncture, you know, craniosacral.
Are you off all your psychotropic meds?
Yes.
Yeah,
long gone.
That's probably another reason why you're feeling better.
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
yeah, definitely.
She only did them for a very short period
Which
of
is
time.
good.
I just said, this is not working. This doesn't work for her.
Yeah.
And with this
They're
condition,
saying, please don't take any more vaccines, but you wouldn't, I presume.
No.
I'm good on that one.
No.
Safely say we're done.
Definitely not.
no.
But so, okay, what would be really nice is if you could talk to that 13-year-old girl that's watching and she thinks that she's not going to get cancer if she has the Gardasil.
Honestly, it's it's not worth it. While there's a chance, this specific, treatment, as far as I've heard, doesn't actually help strains in your 13. While some girls are, sexually active at 13, I know you're not, and most girls aren't. So yes, cancer is terrible and it's horrible, but would you rather that or also have a not equally terrible life, but almost as bad life of, not being able to do anything, having psychological symptoms, having all of these physical symptoms?
Unless if you're lucky and you don't end up like those
dead,
two girls over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can only imagine if she had had the third vaccine. I mean, thank goodness when they called me for it, I said, we're too busy. We don't have time to come in and get in, the third vaccine. She's sick,
So just
read the ingredients on the insert.
Yeah.
Well, do you want that in your body?
Yeah,
I mean,
and be aware that, side effects are a possibility. That's, no one told me that. No one told us that. So
and that's the thing. I mean, I feel like irresponsible because up until the time that she had this vaccine reaction, I always trusted doctors, and I didn't question them. I guess I didn't question what they said. I didn't question, and that has taught me a great lesson with, unfortunately, with the health of my daughter, is that you have to question, because not everybody, maybe some people can tolerate the chemicals that are in the vaccines, but not everybody can. And, if there's a side effect from an aspirin, we watch on the news every day, you take this, it has a side effect. You take that, it has a side effect. So why are we saying that all vaccines are 100% perfectly fine and safe to take? There's just needs to be some safeguards to make sure what's in the vaccine is going to actually be safe.
yeah.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
So much. I'm not going to film you signing the bus because
I already did.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we won't put the cameras on that because you don't.
Yeah, the name.
The name.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, say goodbye to everyone on Periscope.
Bye. I hope that was
And
somewhat
you should watch
helpful.
this back. It's very, very helpful.
Yeah.
So much. Okay,
Oh my
bye
goodness.
everybody.
Bye.